Module 1 is planning your journey. So I'd like to first say that psychedelic experiences are not appropriate for everyone. There are some contraindications health-wise and medicine-wise that are not appropriate for this type of work. It is beyond the scope of this particular training to teach you what drugs interact with what. There are a lot of resources that I will share with you at the end of this training to help you determine how to approach this in the most safe ways. Some of these are contraindicated with specific types of antidepressant medicines. And yet it's very crucial that if you are choosing to come off those antidepressant medicines in order to have a journey, that you do so in a mindful and careful way. So you'd want to work in conjunction with your healthcare provider to come off those things and then to come safely back on. And again, I will give you resources at the end to help make that determination. But first, this is a really meaty section that we're going to go through. There's a lot to talk about here when we talk about planning your journey. The first thing I want to say when we're planning, we're framing this in the idea that you are taking a trip. Let's say you were deciding to travel to, I don't know, Morocco, right? Before you could even travel to Morocco, you've got to get a lay of the land. You need to find a time that it fits into your life. You need to find when is the right time to go. What time is it a good time in Morocco? What is it a good time in your own personal life? So first of all, we just need to assess if this is an appropriate time for you to travel. So what I want to say about that is this is really important to consider. Is now the right time? So here are some reasons that you might say yes to traveling right now. That you are coming from a place of curiosity and exploration. That you're feeling healthy and relaxed. You're wanting perhaps a different perspective. And perhaps you're strengthening and deepening some self-care practices or making a deeper connection to your spiritual practice. Reasons that you might say no to journeying at this time is if you're coming from a place of anxiety and fear, if you are perhaps not feeling mentally or physically healthy. Some of these medicines can inhibit your own immune function. Others seem to be protective in a little ways, so that's important to consider. Another reason you might say no is if you're looking simply to escape the world that you're in right now. While I think there is a possibility for someone to have a pretty profound and beautiful experience with psychedelics, they are known as non-specific amplifiers. And so they tend to amplify what's already up for you, what's already in the field for you. So remember, it is always okay to say no and to reschedule your flight. There's no cost to change your flight when you're doing the inner journey work. So keep that in mind. Next, as we talk about this preparation and planning your journey, there's 4 areas that we really need to dive into in this planning of your journey. We are going to talk about setting, substance, and support. Those are 4 key areas that need to be in place as you're preparing. So let's talk first about set. Set is another word for mindset, but it's nice to think of it as like the whole environment of the self. Ideally, in this type of situation, like I mentioned, it's good to be in a nice relaxed state or being in a position where that curiosity is on board and not that escape feeling. So some of the ways to build an appropriate healthy mindset is to increase health building behaviors. Things that you might do to help you feel better, more movement, more meditation practices, more self-reflection and contemplation. Other healthy behaviors might include taking a look at how you're consuming food and drink. It's less advised to enter a journey space or travel after you've had a lot of alcohol in your system or things like that. Certain traditional uses of certain psychedelics, such as ayahuasca, have a pretty strict protocol ahead of time around what you can consume diet-wise or drink-wise. It's also really helpful to get your head in a really good place. So working on your mindset component, being aware of what you are putting into your head, what's in the milieu that you are immersed in. I would not suggest watching all the terrible, upsetting news in the days leading up to your experience.
I will give an example of someone I know. One of their first psilocybin experiences was recreationally with friends, and the friends suggested that they watch, oh gosh, I don't know, like The Battle in Seattle or some kind of documentary about some pretty high stress social unrest. And this person thought that the film they were watching, they started getting really confused and upset that maybe this was actually happening right now in the time that they were in their psilocybin journey. So I recommend, if you're going to do this, to give yourself a media fast if possible, to really allow yourself to be immersed in things that are going to help put you at ease or bring in a sense of joy or even creativity, not oppressive horror, high stimulus type of stuff going into this space. This journey is actually quite expansive and grounded. And the more you can allow yourself to feel settled in the process, the more successful it will be for you. What else do I want to say about SET? Absolutely, creating time for self-reflection and contemplation is essential here. It's so helpful to give yourself a little more space about why you want to do this and what it's calling you. There isn't a wrong reason for you to do it. It's just there are reasons that will be a little more impactful than other reasons. So if it's just wanting to get high with your friends over a weekend, that could be great. But also sometimes some things can come up. One of the things I've discovered working at festivals is sometimes people will take psychedelics or MDMA with their friends, expecting that they're going to be able to listen to the music and have a lot of fun. And yet their trauma emerges, or memories that they had been trying to push away kind of flood them. So I think it's really important to get your mindset in a good place. Let's talk next about setting. So setting is what your physical environment is going to be. That can vary so greatly. I find that when people are new to journeying, again, if they are in a situation like a festival or a situation that's really high stimulus or with unpredictable stuff in the world, it can be a lot more distressing and there's a lot more risk for challenging situations. So you don't necessarily need to journey at home, even though the name of this course is your home use guide, but you want to be in a space where you feel safe, where you have a little privacy, which I think is really nice, so that you can maybe listen to music a little more loud or make a little noise, not be worried about it. Like, I think being in a really intense apartment complex or a hotel is a little too, the setting's not ideal for that. As much in the setting that you can create a space of beauty is really going to be helpful. So when you're planning this journey, think about ways that you can find a place that is like a nest. It's like how I like to think about it. Where can you feel really settled, held, nurtured, and perhaps bring in a sense of beauty to this place. Next, let's talk about substance, the substance itself. This is crucial information to understand. You must know what you have. So I highly recommend that if you don't know what you have, that you take the time to get it tested. I will provide some resources at the end of this course there. You might be able to get things tested, and there's also a number of test kits available out there in the world. I think this is essential. I have been in situations where people thought they were getting one drug and they've ended up getting something quite different. And it can be pretty distressing when you think you're having this particular type of experience and it ends up being something else completely. So first and foremost, test your stuff. Then it's crucial to understand what you're taking and what its onset, peak, and duration are. So, for example, LSD has a different onset, peak, and duration than psilocybin does. It's quite a bit longer, for example. Wachuma is a pretty long experience, whereas ketamine can just be a much shorter, compact experience. There are a lot of resources to look this up. I will include those for you, but so you know what you're taking and you get an understanding of the arc of what it's going to be like. So let's say you know that it's going to take 1 to 2 hours to take effect, and at the 2-hour mark, you're expecting to be in the peak of the medicine, and then it's going to take another 4 hours to come down from that. And that's just an example. I'm not saying all experiences are like that, but for example, you'll want to have some kind of understanding about that. Now, this is really important because what can happen sometimes for new people, we always recommend, if you're starting here, to go low and go slow. So you don't need to do a heroic dose right out the gate your first time. In fact, please don't do that. Please don't. That can be pretty intense. Low and slow, and remember that you can always add more if you need to, but much like salt, once it's in there, you can't take it back out again. This is why it's crucial to know the onset and peak. If you are using something that you haven't quite moved into the onset phase, you may start thinking, oh, it's not working. I've heard of people doing this a lot. My acid's not working. So then they take another hit, but then all of a sudden, boom, boom, the two of them hit at the same time, which is really intense. It's not expected and not what people are planning for. So make sure you do your homework in that arena and know what to kind of expect in that way. What else about substances? I've heard that people sometimes like to combine substances. I've definitely seen people combine substances. If you are new to this or just returning to this, I would suggest that you start with only one medicine first. So you kind of get to know its profile, get to know how you respond to it, how it feels in your body, not just the day of, but in the days after, before you consider maybe mixing a few things in. Also, it's really important to get to know the potential side effects of these. Some things maybe cause more nausea, or some things maybe give you more jaw upset. I will again provide some resources for you. The other thing that I think is really important is to look at drug-drug interactions, not only with your own perhaps pharmaceutical drugs, but also what these drugs might look like. There's a lovely chart on, I believe it's tripsit.org, that I will share with you. That kind of, you can see like, well, if I took this and I took this, are these synergistic or are they contraindicated? For example, cannabis is really lovely with many of these. Some people like it, some people don't, but that's a relatively safe one. Whereas maybe a sleeping pill in conjunction with something at the end is really not a good idea. So I'll share that with you in the resources section. And then let's move on to support. This is a crucial piece that is often left out of this work. That is so, so important. Before you take this journey, it's really important to have ground control. So anytime a plane flies somewhere, there are people on the ground that that kind of helps guide the flight, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that you need to have a guide guiding you through your experience, but you need to have allies that can support you and help take care of you if needed. So you'll want to know who your allies are before for the preparation part, for the active part, for being in flight, and you need to know who they are for afterwards. So for example, some people work with psychotherapists, and their therapists may or not be supportive of you exploring this territory. However, oftentimes they are very supportive of integrating the material afterwards. There are other people that are supportive of helping you prepare. I think that's one of the things that I can specialize in, is helping you kind of get in a good headspace to do this type of work. There are also people that can be with you either closely or a little more loosely while you're in the medicine space. So if you have a beloved friend or family member that can be in your space with you, but maybe not, like up in your grill the whole time, but available to you, it's really nice to have someone that could be able to check in once in a while, see if you need water, do you need blankets, do you need, just someone to be available to help just give you a little ground control. If you are choosing to journey alone in your own space, there are some professional organizations that are out there to give you support. Fireside is one. Again, this will be in the resources for you. TripSit also has people that can be with you during your session online, which is kind of cool. Or you can also just have a beloved friend or someone that you can say, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Will you check on me in a couple hours? Or that they can be your landline, your lifeline, I guess is the better way to say it, where you can reach out to them if you need a little support. That's nice for people to know. I have had a situation here and there where some folks have reached out to me in the middle of their experience, and I wasn't aware that they were doing that. And I'm, of course, happy to support people going through that. But if I don't know that they're in that experience, I might not really be available to support them. And that's really hard if you're struggling during the experience and you don't have someone to rely on. So those are the 4 pillars that are really important in preparing for your journey. Your mindset, the setting, the environment that you're going to be in, the substance, knowing what you're doing and how long it's going to last, what it's going to be like, and the support, your ground control, the people that got your back.